My parents canceled my 18th birthday for my sister's tantrum, so I quietly moved out and watched their perfect life fall apart without me. I'm 20 now, and this happened 2 years ago, but I'm finally ready to tell this story because honestly, the ending is something I never saw coming. So let me take you back to when I was 18, living in Arizona with my family who looked perfect from the outside, but was completely dysfunctional on the inside. My parents owned a successful landscaping business and did real estate consulting on the side, so we had money, a big house, nice cars, the whole suburban dream setup. But here's the thing. Everything in that house revolved around one person, my sister Brittany, who was 24 at the time, 6 years older than me, and I'm not exaggerating when I say she never heard the word no in her entire life. Let me paint you the picture of how bad it was. Brittany got a brand new BMW for her 21st birthday, while I got a beat-up pickup truck that barely started when I turned 16. She got $3,200 a month as an allowance, just for existing, while I got nothing and had to work since I was 16 to pay for literally everything I needed. But it wasn't just about the money or the cars. It was about how I'd become the invisible one who kept everything running. I was the one making sure bills got paid, groceries got bought, repairs got scheduled, even managed my mom's client scheduling for her real estate consulting because she was always too busy dealing with whatever crisis Brittany had created that week. My dad was the same way, dropping everything whenever Brittany called, and I'd learned to just exist in the background, doing what needed to be done, never complaining, always hoping that maybe someday they'd actually see me. When my 18th birthday was coming up, I decided to do something I'd never done before. I asked for something. Nothing crazy, just a party at our house with my friends, my girlfriend, my wrestling coach, Mr. Torres, who'd been more of a father figure to me than my actual dad, and my favorite English teacher. I planned everything myself because that's what I always did, sent out invitations, ordered the food, even decorated our backyard with lights and tables. I was genuinely excited, which looking back now seems kind of pathetic, an 18-year-old just wanting his parents to show up for him one time. 2 days before my party, Brittany came home having a complete meltdown. She'd been planning this trip to Cancun with her friends, but apparently one of them had to cancel last minute, and you would have thought the world was ending. She was screaming, crying, throwing things in her room, the whole dramatic performance. My mom immediately went into crisis mode, and my dad started making phone calls to fix it, because that's what they always did. They fixed things for Brittany. I was in my room finishing up the last details for my party when my mom knocked on my door, and the look on her face told me everything I needed to know before she even opened her mouth. "Sweetie, we need to talk about your birthday," she said, and my stomach just dropped. Brittany is going through a really difficult time right now, and she's very emotionally fragile, so we think having a big party here this weekend might be too stressful for her. I just stared at her because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "It's my birthday," I said, and she gave me this sympathetic look that made me want to scream. "I know, honey, but she really needs us right now. So we were thinking we could do something small for you next weekend instead, just family." I told her I'd already invited everyone. The food was ordered. People were expecting to come, and she just waved it off like it was nothing. "We'll reimburse you for the food, and I'm sure your friends will understand." And then she just left, walked away like she'd asked me to reschedule a dentist appointment, not my entire 18th birthday. I sat there for maybe 10 minutes, completely numb, and then I started making calls. 15 calls total, telling my friends the party was canceled, making up some excuse about a family emergency, listening to my girlfriend cry on the phone, turning down my coach's offer to take me out instead. I just wanted it to be over. That night, the night before my actual birthday, I sat in my room and waited for someone to realize how insane this was. I waited for my dad to knock on my door and say this wasn't right, waited for my mom to come back and apologize, waited for anyone in my family to fight for me. Nobody came. The next morning, my actual 18th birthday, I woke up to complete silence. No happy birthday, no card, no acknowledgement that this day meant anything at all. My parents were already up, helping Brittany pack for her rescheduled Cancun trip because of course they'd paid for her friend's ticket to fix the whole situation. I made myself breakfast and sat alone at the kitchen table, watching my family move around me like I was invisible. Brittany walked past me without a word, too busy on FaceTime with her friends. My mom was making her a smoothie. My dad was loading her designer luggage into his car. And I just sat there, eating cereal by myself on my 18th birthday, and something inside me shifted. It wasn't anger or sadness. It was just this crystal clear moment of understanding. I was legally an adult now, and I didn't owe these people anything anymore. That night, After they'd all left to take Brittany to the airport, I texted my wrestling coach. "Can we talk? I need help." He responded within 5 minutes. "Come over right now." And that's when I started planning my exit. I didn't yell or make a scene or confront anyone. I just started quietly moving my life somewhere else. Because if they could cancel my entire existence for Brittany's tantrum, I could cancel them from my life permanently. And that's exactly what I did. So after that conversation with my coach, I started planning my exit like it was a military operation. For the next 3 weeks, I moved through that house like a ghost, doing all my usual chores, managing the bills, keeping everything running, but inside I was already gone. My wrestling coach, Mr. Torres, didn't ask questions. He just told me I could stay in their guest room as long as I needed, no strings attached. And for the first time in my life, I felt like an adult actually cared about what happened to me. I started moving my stuff out gradually, a box here, a bag there, telling my parents I was staying over at friends' houses for end-of-year school stuff. And they barely noticed because they were too busy dealing with Brittany's post-Cancun drama about how one of her friends had been mean to her on the trip. I kept working my part-time job at the gym and picking up graphic design clients on the side, saving every single dollar because I knew I'd need it. The money I'd been earning since I was 16 was all mine in my own bank account. Thank God I'd been smart enough to set that up separately, so my parents couldn't touch it. I had about $3,200 saved up, which wasn't a fortune, but it was a start. The whole time I was planning this, I kept waiting for someone in my family to notice something was different, to ask if I was okay, to acknowledge that they'd screwed up my birthday, but nothing. Brittany was back to her normal routine of sleeping until noon and going out with friends on my parents' credit card, and my mom and dad were back to revolving their entire world around her. The day I left was a Tuesday, nothing special about it. My parents were both at work. Brittany was at some brunch place with her friends spending money she didn't earn, and I packed up the last of my stuff. I left my house keys on the kitchen counter and put a note on my bed that said, "I'm 18 and I'm leaving. Don't look for me until you learn what respect means." I've spent 2 years keeping this family running while you built everything around Brittany. I'm done. You won't hear from me until you're ready to actually apologize, not just guilt trip me into coming back. Have the life you chose. And then I walked out the front door and didn't look back. Living with the Torres family was like discovering what normal actually looked like. They had dinner together every single night, and people actually talked to each other about their days and listened. Mrs. Torres taught me how to cook real meals, not just microwave stuff or takeout. Their daughter Maya, who was 16, treated me like a normal person, not like a servant or someone who owed her something. Mr. Torres helped me apply for scholarships at Arizona State University, and when I got accepted with a partial academic scholarship, he was more proud than my own parents had ever been about anything I'd done. I kept working at the gym and took on more graphic design projects, building up my portfolio, and one of my clients was so impressed they offered me a full-time junior graphic designer position at their marketing company. The pay wasn't amazing, but it was steady, and combined with my savings, I had enough after 3 months to rent a small room in a shared apartment near ASU campus. Meanwhile, back at my parents' house, things were apparently falling apart. At first they tried calling me, leaving voicemails that ranged from annoyed to worried, but not once did anyone actually apologize. It was always, "We need to talk about this," or "You're being immature," or "This is really hurting your mother." Like I was the problem, like I was the one who'd done something wrong. After 2 weeks of that, I blocked all their numbers because I was done listening to them make themselves the victims. I heard what was happening back home through mutual friends and social media, and the information that filtered back to me was honestly satisfying. Turns out I'd been holding a lot more together than I realized. Bills started getting paid late because nobody knew which ones were due when. My mom's real estate clients were annoyed because appointments were getting mixed up without me managing her calendar. My dad missed a couple of contract deadlines because I wasn't there to remind him or help with the paperwork. The house was apparently a mess because nobody else knew where anything was or how to maintain it. But honestly, I felt zero guilt about any of it. They'd made their choice about who mattered in that family, and now they were dealing with the consequences. Then about 4 months after I left, I heard through a friend that Brittany had been arrested. Actually arrested, with handcuffs and everything. She'd been stealing from her roommates at her college apartment, designer clothes, electronics, even credit cards. When my parents bailed her out and started digging into what was going on, they discovered she had $35,000 in secret credit card debt from luxury shopping, trips, bottle service at clubs, all while pretending to be a struggling college student. And here's the kicker, my parents covered all of it. Every single penny. They took out a loan against their landscaping business to pay off her debt, because God forbid Brittany face any actual consequences for her actions. The best part? She dropped out of college after that and moved back home. So now my parents had a 24-year-old woman with no degree, no job, no skills, and apparently no shame, living in their house and still throwing tantrums when she didn't get her way. I heard all of this through the grapevine, and I'm not gonna lie, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Not because I wanted them to suffer, but because for once they were facing the reality of the choices they'd made. They kept trying to reach me. My dad even showed up at my gym once, but I saw him through the window and left through the back entrance. He left a note on my car that said, "Please come home. We need you." Not "we're sorry," not "we were wrong," just "we need you." Like I was a tool they'd misplaced and wanted back. I started classes at ASU that fall, made actual friends who valued me, kept dating my girlfriend who'd stuck with me through everything, and was doing well at my graphic design job. For the first time in my life, I felt like I could breathe, like I mattered, like my life was actually mine. And my family, they were drowning in the mess they'd created, and I just kept swimming forward without looking back. About a year and a half after I left, when I was almost 20 and Brittany was 26, I heard through a mutual friend that she'd been arrested again. But this time it wasn't just stealing from roommates or credit card fraud. This was way bigger. Apparently, she'd gotten involved in some crypto investment scheme that turned out to be a complete pyramid scam. And she'd convinced a bunch of people to invest their money, including several of my parents' business clients from both the landscaping company and my mom's real estate consulting. When the whole thing collapsed, Brittany was on the hook for over $45,000 in damages, and multiple people were threatening to sue. My parents, desperate to protect what was left of their reputation and their businesses, tried to cover the losses like they always did. But here's the thing, they couldn't. They'd already drained their savings bailing her out the first time with that $35,000 credit card debt. They'd taken out that loan against the landscaping business. They'd maxed out their own credit cards, keeping Brittany afloat. There was nothing left to give. Over the next 6 months, I watched from a distance as everything systematically fell apart. First, they had to sell the big house, the one with the perfect backyard where my canceled birthday party was supposed to happen. Then Brittany's BMW went up for sale online. I saw the listing myself. My dad's truck, my mom's luxury SUV, everything got liquidated to pay off debts. The money from selling the house went straight to covering the business loan and settling with some of the people Brittany had scammed. They sold off equipment from the landscaping business, office furniture from my mom's consulting firm, anything that had value. My dad's consulting business completely collapsed when clients found out about Brittany's scheme and didn't want to be associated with the family anymore. My mom's real estate work dried up because she couldn't manage it without me, and word had spread fast in their professional circles. They declared bankruptcy, and after everything was sold and divided up to pay creditors, what little was left went toward getting Brittany into a proper psychiatric facility because she'd had a complete mental breakdown. I heard through people who knew the family that my parents had separated after 25 years of marriage. Not divorced yet, but my dad had moved into a small rental apartment and was working as a project manager at someone else's landscaping company, the first time he'd worked for someone else in 2 decades. My mom was staying with her sister across town and had taken some administrative job. Brittany spent 3 weeks in inpatient psychiatric care, and when she got out, she moved into a tiny studio that my parents were helping cover with what little money they had left from their regular paychecks. She was unemployed, barely functional, and apparently finally facing the reality that nobody was going to save her anymore. I heard all of this in pieces from old neighbors and mutual acquaintances, and honestly, I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not guilt, not vindication, just this strange, empty distance. Because while their world was burning down, mine was actually getting better. I'd made Dean's List at ASU. I was doing really well at my graphic design job and getting more responsibilities. My girlfriend and I were talking about getting a bigger place together, and I had actual friends who cared about me. I hadn't spoken to anyone in my family in almost 2 years, and I was genuinely happy for the first time in my life. Then on a Friday night, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. It was my dad, and his voice was completely broken. He told me he knew he had no right to call, that he wasn't asking me to come back, but that he needed me to hear him say he was sorry. He said they'd lost everything, that he and my mom were separated, that Brittany was not okay, and that he'd finally realized I was the one who'd held everything together while they built their entire world around her. He said he'd failed me as a father. I could hear him crying, actually crying, something I'd never heard before in my life. I sat there for a long time before I spoke, and when I did, my voice was steady. I reminded him about my canceled 18th birthday, about how nobody had even acknowledged it, about how he'd called me immature when I left instead of apologizing. He admitted he remembered everything, that I was right about all of it. Then I told him something that I'd been thinking about for 2 years. I said I didn't hate him, but I wasn't the same person anymore, and I wasn't coming back to fix anything for them. There was a long pause, and he said he understood, that he wasn't asking me to save them, just that maybe someday I'd let them try to know who I'd become. I thought about it, really thought about it, and then I gave him my terms. Brittany had to stay in real therapy and get an actual job, no more bailouts. He and my mom had to go to therapy and deal with their issues. And if I ever let them back into my life, it would be completely on my terms, no guilt trips, no manipulation. They'd have to earn it back. He agreed to everything without hesitation. A few weeks later, I met my dad for coffee. Just 1 hour, just the two of us. He looked older and tired, working a regular job for the first time in 20 years. We actually talked, and he listened when I told him about my life, my school, my plans. He didn't ask for anything. Since then, I've met with him a few times, and my mom separately too. It's awkward and sometimes painful, but it's honest. Brittany sent me a letter apologizing last month. I haven't responded yet, and I don't know if I will. Here's what I learned from all of this. I didn't get revenge. I didn't ruin their lives. I just stopped letting them ruin mine. They collapsed under the weight of their own choices while I built something real without them. Now they're trying to rebuild, and maybe someday there's space for them in my life again, but only as the man I've become, not the invisible kid they ignored. I'm 20 years old. I'm in college. I'm happy, and I finally matter. Not because they decided I do, but because I decided I do. What do you think about this story? Let me know in the comments. Drop a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories.